CNN Brasil. Você por dentro de tudo.
How would you react? Where would you go if you woke up one morning to war on your doorstep?
This is Kharkiv now, completely in ruins.
I cannot believe it's happening, really. Коли вони вже гади підуть звідси?
For more than a year now, no matter where you turn, Putin's terror can find you. Yet despite all of the suffering,
this is where they make the Molotov cocktails?
The people of Ukraine
we will provide bedding and blankets,
are still standing, still fighting, and some say even winning.
The Ukrainians took this entire area back in September.
This is Ukraine today.
Freedom matters. Peace matters. Ukraine matters.
These are the people who have defied the odds against them.
We are fighting for our freedom.
How are they doing it? And at what cost?
Take your time if you want to take a break.
We have to get ready for everything, anything.
Нельзя опускать.
Kyiv Central Station, the nerve center of Ucrânia, Ukraine's 16,000-mile sprawling rail system. Nearly 1 year ago, this ordinary transit hub was anything but. As Russian forces advanced towards the city, scenes of chaos and heartbreak flooded the station's platforms, and many others like it across the country. Families were wrenched apart as fathers sent their wives and children to safety.
There is definitely an intensification, an urgency as people are trying to get out of the country, out of the city.
In all, nearly 4 million people raced to the railroad to escape the war unfolding around them, making this already vital service an essential lifeline for Ukrainians. Today, things look very different. It is Orthodox Christmas in Ukraine, and Kyiv is no longer under immediate threat. Many Ukrainians have now returned to their homes. But this is still a country at war, and Ucrânia is still very much the backbone of Ukraine's war effort.
Like the whole company.
At just 38 years old, the railway's proud CEO, Alexander Kamyshin, has one main goal. The trains must always keep running.
This war is changing all the time. Now we have to think in advance and get ready for everything, anything.
When Russia began its ruthless winter campaign targeting Ukraine's critical infrastructure, Alexander and his team were ready with nearly 10,000 wood-burning stoves.
You literally have iron stoves in here.
Yeah.
To keep people warm.
Yeah.
As soon as territory is liberated, train service is restored. When a shell hits the tracks, maintenance workers are out within hours to start repairs.
How hard do you push yourself on that front and push the people who work for you?
120%. You can call it obsession.
Your employees, or the employees of the railway, have been called iron people. Obviously, that is something that predates the war, but when you look at the response of your employees, do you think that's a sort of apt characterization of them?
Maybe.
There are people who spent months living basically on the trains, in the stations. A lot of people gave a lot in order to meet the moment.
I've been meeting my people across the whole country thousands of times during this war. I've been shaking their hands and saying thanks for what you do. I'm telling that genuinely from my heart. You know what they say? Come on, we're just doing our job, nothing special.
On the platform, my team and I board a train heading east to Kharkiv, a city just miles from the Russian border and one of Putin's earliest targets. Today, the train to Kharkiv is filled with travelers heading home for the holidays, soldiers returning to the front lines, and a young mother, 25-year-old Lena, going back to Kharkiv to reunite with her family after fleeing with her infant son last March.
Did you ever worry that you might not see your family again, that you might not be able to go back home to Kharkiv again?
Можливо, ні. Я думаю, що ні. Я знала, що я повернусь, що я точно буду разом зі своєю сім'єю. І я не знаю, мабуть, з червня я планувала повернення.
Were you missing your mom a lot?
Yeah, of course. Зараз, коли я була в Німеччині, бачила, що сім'ї разом. Це важко.
But now you're together and you're going home. You must be very happy.
Ну, війна ще не закінчилась. Нічого, віримо, що все буде добре. Те, як моя мама і інші харків'яни продовжують жити, через це я хочу також повертатися і теж продовжувати жити в Україні.
What's the first thing you want to do when you get home?
Я хочу обійняти свого чоловіка. Обійняти.
I think I hear your little boy is awake now, baby.
Yes. Витька, пойдешь ко мне? Идешь? Да, моя кися. Ты улыбнешься? Да.
That night, once we arrive in Kharkiv, Lena finally gets that long-awaited hug. And we head out into the dark city, ready for some reunions of our own. Welcome to Kharkiv. For decades, Ukraine's second-largest city has been known as a university town, a vibrant center for Ukrainian culture, arts, and sciences. Kharkiv has also traditionally been a Russian-speaking city, and despite long-standing conflict with Russia, most Kharkivites have held deep yet complicated ties to their northern neighbor less than 30 miles away.
We have been hearing a steady stream of loud strikes.
But as they learned on February 24th, good neighbors do not treat you like this. Indiscriminate and nearly constant shelling by the Russians has left a trail of death and destruction throughout this region. The once bustling residential suburb of Saltivka, now a grim memorial to the carnage. The last time we were here in Saltivka, it was just getting smashed by Russian artillery every day. 300,000 people, roughly, used to live in this area. But since the beginning of the war, it really became the front line. And even now, coming back here, you're just starting to see little hints of life reemerging. One resident told me this was her first time back to Saltivka since the bombings. Months later, she is still haunted by the violence.
Честно, мне аж плакать хочется. Это тот, кто этого не пережил, этого не поймет страха, жуткого. И на картинках это не так показать. Это очень страшно. Жутко. У меня нет слов, честно. Это...
Back in April, our team witnessed some of the terror of Kharkiv firsthand.
Go. Come on, Maria. Maria, come on. Come on, Maria. Go, go.
Okay, so we were just in an apartment building. They were looking for an injured man. A bunch of rounds came in and hit the next door building, so now we are getting out as fast as we can.
The incoming fire continued, but paramedics Volodymyr Wenzel and Alexandra Rudkovska-Ruban kept searching for the injured man. And soon they found him, just in time to save his life. On our return to Kharkiv 8 months later, I knew that our first stop had to be here.
С Новым годом! С Новым годом! С Рождеством! Oh my God! Волосы!
Yeah.
Где они? How are you? Alive? Healthy?
Живем.
Живем. We're alive, exactly.
Thankfully, miraculously, the pair is alive and well. And though the skies are much quieter, they are still saving lives.
I heard that you're now doctors.
Like a resident.
A resident?
In America it's called resident.
That's amazing. Yeah. I don't know anyone who in the middle of a war also manages to finish medical school. This is like not normal.
It's Ukraine, you know.
Yeah.
It's Ukraine. It's Kharkiv, you know. It's.
The following night, I head out to meet the paramedics for dinner. On the way there, I am struck by the city's eerie darkness. Russia's continued attacks on the power grid have made electricity a precious resource. Another sign that life here is still far from normal.
Hi!
But inside, I am greeted with typical Ukrainian warmth, food, and laughter. As we chat alongside Alexandra's husband and mother, it quickly becomes clear that 1 year later, while the war has changed, these brave Ukrainians have not.
В женской сумочке с собой ношу турникет. На всякий случай пусть лежит. Мало ли.
So I guess the question becomes, the situation is obviously a lot quieter in Kharkiv than it was before, but the war is not over. How do you keep up hope when there is still kind of a long road ahead?
Віримо в перемогу.
Віримо в ЗСУ.
Did you ever doubt that Ukraine would ultimately win?
No.
Never?
Never. No.
Україна наше все и...
And everything is exactly what these young Ukrainians have given to the fight. While his own wife and young child headed west to a safer part of the country, Volodymyr stayed put.
Has it been hard to be separated from your family?
Yeah, it's very hard. But I know that they safe
It's a big part of Ukraine's success, I think, is that almost every Ukrainian seems to feel called to service in this moment. I often think about this. Would it be the same in America? Would it be the same in England?
Не знаю, у меня, честно, не было ни разу желания уехать не то что со страны, даже со своего города. А мы на своей земле, поэтому правда за нами.
Should we have another toast?
Yes.
To Ukraine?
За Україну, да, можна?
За Україну.
За Україну.
The next morning, just a short drive outside the city, we visit a small village nearly flattened by the war. Today, over 100 empty coffins have arrived. Volunteers unload them onto a playground next to a bombed-out school. In a few weeks, when the ground defrosts, the villagers will exhume an untold number of dead bodies they suspect are strewn throughout the town. Finally, the dead will be identified and laid to rest with proper burials. It is here in Ruski Tishki village that we meet volunteer Olha Shpak, a Kharkiv native who had lived and worked in Moscow since the 90s. In her previous life, Olha was a renowned whale scientist. But since February 24th, she is dedicated 24/7 to helping the people of Ukraine to survive and to defeat the Russians.
I arrived in the morning of the 23rd, and I just said, Mom, I'm coming. Just take a look what they did to us. I'll be moving slowly. I want you to have time to see how my town looks now.
Did you have any conversations in the early days of the war with any of your Russian friends?
Plenty.
What were they saying?
They were scared. They were desperate. One of them said that the tears of blood of running down his face, and neither their grandchildren would be able to wash out this dirt and this blood from their faces. They tell me, maybe you take your mom and move to Moscow, it's safer now. I just asked them, do you think your grandmother would go to Berlin during the Second World War? Do you? Moscow is the fascist Berlin to us now.
Tell me about the beginning of the war. Were you afraid?
Not for a second, not for a second. Starting the morning of February 25, I was on the square volunteering. We were so busy, we were so tired by the end of the day. I didn't think about anything. I didn't have emotions. I didn't have thoughts. I was just working as a machine.
Nearly 1 year later, Olha is still working. Today, that means helping ordinary people, a local humanitarian group that distributes aid to villagers still without power. Blankets, beds, and a heater. Anything to help survive a winter amidst the rubble. But at this stage of the war, Olha says most of her days are spent sourcing badly needed supplies for Ukraine's soldiers.
Slava Ukraini!
Kharkiv was part of this incredible counteroffensive, pushed the Russians out. But there has been a lot of talk now about could there be another offensive that the Russians are planning. Are you fearful at all?
We all understand that as volunteers, and especially as volunteers who help military, we would be targeted. So to say that I'm not afraid would be kind of silly. I don't want a slow death, like being tortured. But otherwise, we've all used to think that we have to live today. And then tomorrow will show us what our future is.
One day at a time.
Yep. Yeah.
The village of Stary Saltiv sits along the Siversky Donets River, in the far northeast corner of Ukraine's Kharkiv region. It used to be a place where people came in the summer to relax and enjoy the water. Now the area is almost unrecognizable. Less than 15 miles from the Russian border, it was easily overtaken by Russian forces in the early hours of the war. But the Ukrainians never stopped fighting.
So the Ukrainians took this entire area back in September, but it's still incredibly difficult to live here because, as you can see, the bridge has been destroyed. It actually was the Ukrainians who destroyed it back in the spring. They did it to stop Russian forces from moving into this area. But now it's a huge challenge for people living on the other side. And you really see the grit and the resilience of the Ukrainian people living here. They're walking across the ice, carrying cans to fill with diesel to power their generators, going back and forth to try and get food and supplies so they can continue to live in their homes.
This is what victory looks like in much of Ukraine. It is grim and it is fragile. The front lines around this region are still active, which is why we find Ivan, a 32-year-old volunteer soldier, heading towards the action. He asks we don't give his last name for his security.
It's a good feeling. I back to my brothers who waiting for me on the first line. It's our deal, our duty.
Ivan arrives at the house where his unit is based. It's a few miles from the trenches, but well within the range of Russian artillery.
Поначалу было очень страшно. То место, где тебя могут убить, да, не будем кривить душу, где тебя могут убить. То есть это очень большой стресс и шок для психики.
Like many fighting in Ukraine, Ivan never imagined he would become a soldier.
Будущее у меня было очень интересное, я уже себе очень многое распланировал, но, к сожалению, 24 февраля Россия почему-то решила это все изменить. Этот путь меня привел к тому, что я являюсь военным.
When the war began, Ivan was a civilian living in Kherson. As he witnessed Russian forces occupy his hometown, he decided he needed to fight back. At the time, he says that meant joining a secret network of underground partisans who would send information about Russian troop movements, what weapons they had, anything that might give the Ukrainians the upper hand.
Можно посмотреть?
Да, вот.
Понятно, да.
То есть интерфейс на украинском языке.
He says he began covertly supplying information to Ukraine's security services using a Ukrainian app on his phone called DIA.
И где я замечал какую-либо технику, либо расположение, где русские войска расположились, Я скидывал координаты, ну и писал, что обнаружил там расположение русской воинской части.
Did you understand the risk of what you were doing, the danger of what you were doing, if you were caught?
Ну, конечно, я понимаю все риски, я понимаю опасность для себя, но ну что сделаешь? Ну, как бы, если не мы будем делать, то кто? Кто за нас сделает? Никто.
I'm standing now in the very center of the city, and there were two cruise missiles that hit the building.
It was March 1st, less than 1 week into the war. Days earlier, Kharkiv native Vsevolod Kozhmaiko had been skiing in the Austrian mountains. Now, his city was on fire.
Now I was in a hurry to get back. People were prepared to fight back, to defend their land and to defend their city.
Vsevolod is not your typical soldier. He's a Ukrainian agriculture mogul who felt compelled to build a volunteer unit of soldiers, funded with his personal fortune.
So this is one of our bases.
Yeah. We joined Vsevolod in a secret bunker in the city the night before his return to the front lines.
So this is some of the explosives that you have amassed. Wow.
The guys are doing these things, they are using to...
to drop them from drones.
Informally known as the Billionaires Battalion, the unit helped to push Russian forces out of Kharkiv. What they lack in traditional training, they make up for in equipment.
Yeah.
What of your skills as a businessman enabled you to start your own unit?
I'm an entrepreneur, and this is actually the enterprise. This is a new company, but it's created not for getting profit. It's created to kill the enemy.
How has Ukraine been so successful in fighting off the world's second largest military?
We're right. We are fighting for our freedom, for our way of life. We didn't want this war. And they started that, so we have to fight.
How many members of your unit have you lost?
It's a few people. The last loss was a very bright 28-year-old woman.
Does her death in some way motivate you to,
To revenge?
To revenge,
of course.
to...
No, of course. That is why we continue fighting, and we remember all these people who were with us. And when the victory comes, we will always remember them.
People are obviously incredibly affected by this situation. They're frightened, they're exhausted.
It's March 5th, just 1 week into the invasion. The people of Irpin, a suburb at the doorstep of the capital, have already withstood days of Russian strikes. For many, this bombed-out bridge is their only opportunity to escape.
Ну вот, ничего страшного, ничего страшного. Как вас зовут?
Weeks later, Putin's planned takeover of Kyiv had failed. Russian troops were forced to withdraw from Irpin and the north entirely. It was the first of many hard-fought Ukrainian victories, won not only with bullets and bravery, but with creativity
Ось так.
and cutting-edge technology. At 32 years old, Mikhailo Fedorov is Ukraine's youngest minister in charge of digital transformation, a piece of the war puzzle that many argue has been the single biggest game changer on the battlefield, known as algorithmic warfare.
What's so striking about this war is that when you're on the front lines, you see people fighting in conditions in trenches with artillery and tanks in scenes that are reminiscent of the First and Second World War. And yet at the same time, this is the most technologically sophisticated war that has ever been fought. At what stage did you understand the power that technology could bring?
У нас дійсно в Україні є великий бекграунд. У нас 300 тисяч IT-спеціалістів в Україні і досить на високому рівні розвинуті технології.
After the invasion, Fedorov was quick to adapt. He took an app called Dia, originally developed to allow Ukrainians to access records and pay bills online, and transformed it, giving citizens in Russian-occupied areas like Ivan a way to provide information to security services. Videos like this, showing Russian weaponry and troop movements, could now be easily and secretly uploaded.
Ми отримали 440 тисяч повідомлень про пересування техніки, де святкують окупанти дні народження, де в них база, де навчаються.
To be sure, Ukraine has not transformed the digital battlefield alone. In the run-up to the invasion, support poured in from Silicon Valley's top tech companies to help the country prepare.
Просто пошта почала бути там завалена повідомленнями, тобто, в принципі, там десятки компаній швидко відреагували.
And what has that support meant to you?
Вона є критичною для нашої діяльності, тому що якби ми не перенесли в хмари ще до початку вторгнення за кілька тижнів наші інформаційні ресурси, держава б не змогла функціонувати так, як вона функціонує зараз. І якби Starlink і SpaceX не почали швидко поставляти Starlink, а я не знаю, як відбувалися би події, тому що зв'язок є критичним під час війни і на полі бою.
Among the many companies offering assistance was Palantir, a secretive American software company that got its start working with U.S. intelligence services. Alex Karp was the first CEO to meet with President Zelensky after Russia's invasion.
And here you have a culture that is able to perform at a level of any of the world players we've ever dealt with.
According to Karp, most of Ukraine's military targeting is now done using advanced Palantir software. And Ukraine has now developed its own situational awareness system similar to Palantir's called Delta. Yet another innovation Fedorov says has transformed the way wars are fought. Whoa. And he hopes how they are won.
Are you thinking that in the future this will be a war that's predominantly fought with drones?
І дійсно картина війни вона буде змінюватися. Ми вважаємо, що роль безпілотних засобів вона буде зростати, і ця війна вона закінчиться війною, можна сказати, роботів, БПЛА проти БПЛА.
And you don't rule out the possibility that Russia could catch up?
Я б недооцінював російську армію.
So it's not the time to get complacent.
Ні в коєму разі. Потрібно прогнозувати наступні виклики і працювати з цими викликами. І їх буде ще багато попереду.
For much of the war, the central city of Dnipro has been considered a largely safe part of Ukraine. But one of the many cruelties of this war is that the longer you survive it, the more it can feel normal, even ordinary. Until one day, reality comes crashing down. On January 14th, the 325th day of Putin's war, Dnipro was hell on earth. In all, 46 people were killed, including 6 children, after a 2,000-pound Russian missile as long as a city bus slammed into this apartment building.
So the blue wall,
That's
your bathroom.
24-year-old Nastya Shvets was at home in bed sleeping.
When you look at it now, what do you feel?
Пустота.
The missile sliced Nastya's one-bedroom apartment in half, killing both of her parents in the kitchen, while just inches away, Nastya clung on to life.
I think for a lot of people it's hard to understand why Russia would use this huge missile that's intended to take out an aircraft carrier in a residential area. How do you try to understand why Russia would do something like this?
I don't understand.
Can you tell me a little bit about your mom and dad, what they were like as people?
Це були дуже життєрадісні люди. Вони завжди готові були підставити своє плече допомоги. Все життя вони були поруч друг з другом. І залишили по собі таку людину, як я. І я дуже вдячна їм, що вони вклали в мене все найкраще.
Do you ever wonder why you were saved? It's this extraordinary image that we see of you surviving the unsurvivable.
Я дуже багато замислювалась над цією темою, тому що, це нереально. А останні слова матері були, що Настю, йди, відпочивай вже, бо тобі на роботу треба. А часу вже було багато, це вже було майже на 3:30, а мені на роботу потрібно виїжджати було о 7:00.
Take your time if you want to take a break.
This is not the first grief Nastya has experienced in this war. In September, her boyfriend Vladislav was killed while fighting on the front lines in Kharkiv.
Did you think, that this might be the man that you would marry, that you would start a family with?
Так, я була в цьому впевнена, бо, як кажуть, це був справжній чоловік, який міг зробити все, що завгодно, і готов був дістати тобі зірку з неба, аби ти тільки посміхалась.
You have experienced so much sadness and so much loss. In some ways, your story is the story of Ukraine, of people who have given so much, but who continue to survive.
Десь я відчуваю це, бо я можу впасти у депресію, але це вже мені нічим не допоможе. Я повинна наразі взяти себе до рук і далі йти по життю з гордо піднятою головою.
That courage and grit have come to define Ukraine, and the price has been painfully high. Tens of thousands of lives have been destroyed. Estimates suggest it will require close to $1 trillion to rebuild the country when this is all over. But today, the end is still nowhere in sight. Back in Saltivka and Kharkiv, where the damage seems irreparable and the present remains dark, after 365 days of war, the people of Ukraine still have hope.
We saw you from the window. You're the only one here rebuilding. Why?
Есть надежда, что будет лучше, что все-таки, может быть, вернемся. Если ничего не делать, будет хуже. Руки нельзя опускать.